Whereabouts? I don't think you have, mate.
A dying teenager begged for help. Police thought he was the attacker, and the truth wasn't discovered until it was far too late.
You've been stabbed? Whereabouts? I don't think you have, mate.
Lying on the ground, 18-year-old Henry Nowak could barely speak. His voice was weak, his breathing was fading, but he kept repeating the same desperate words.
Right, let's get you out of there, shall we? What's happened to you, alright?
I've been stabbed. Then, moments later, I can't breathe. Again and again and again. What officers didn't realize was that Henry wasn't making excuses, he wasn't resisting arrest, and he wasn't pretending to be injured. He was bleeding internally from a wound that had already begun taking his life. Yet as precious seconds slipped away, the teenager was placed in handcuffs and treated as a suspect, not a victim. The body cam footage you're about to see shocked an entire nation. It sparked outrage, protests, political debate, and a major investigation into police actions. Because one question continues to haunt everyone who watches it. How did a teenager repeatedly tell officers he had been stabbed and still end up arrested while dying on the street?
June 2025, Southampton, England. What began as a violent street confrontation quickly turned into one of the most controversial police incidents in recent memory. At the center of it all was 18-year-old student Henry Nowak, a teenager with his whole life ahead of him, and another man named Vikram Digwa. When officers arrived at the scene, they were forced to make split-second decisions. But according to Bodycam footage later released to the public, those decisions would become the focus of national debate. The footage was so disturbing that political leaders, investigators, and thousands of ordinary people demanded answers. The question everyone wanted answered was simple. How did a dying victim end up in handcuffs? To understand that, we have to go back to the beginning.
On the night of the incident, chaos erupted in Southampton. Somewhere during a confrontation between Henry Nowak and 23-year-old Vikram Digwa, a knife was pulled. What officers did not know when they arrived was that Henry had already suffered multiple stab wounds. One of those wounds had pierced his heart. Internally, he was bleeding heavily, but from the outside, the injuries were not immediately obvious, and that would change everything. When officers first reached the scene, they encountered both men. Digwa quickly began speaking to police. According to court proceedings, he claimed he had been attacked. He alleged that Henry had assaulted him and targeted him because of his religion. As officers listened, attention shifted away from Henry and toward Digwa. Meanwhile, Henry was lying on the ground, weak, struggling, barely able to keep speaking. An officer asked for his name. The teenager quietly responded, "Henry." That single word would become one of the most heartbreaking moments captured on camera, because moments later, Henry repeatedly tried to tell officers what had happened. He said he had been stabbed, again and again. He said he couldn't breathe, again and again. But those warnings did not immediately convince everyone at the scene. Officers questioned where he had supposedly been injured. Some appeared skeptical. One officer reportedly responded that he didn't believe Henry had been stabbed. Another voice could be heard suggesting there were no obvious signs of injury. The problem was that the most serious wounds weren't easy to see. The fatal injury was hidden beneath the surface, and every second mattered. As Henry continued speaking, officers began treating him as a suspect, not as a victim. His hands were moved behind his back, handcuffs were placed on him, and while that happened, Henry kept repeating the same desperate phrase, "I can't breathe." According to his family, he said those words 9 separate times. 9 times. Imagine being in the worst moment of your life, knowing something is terribly wrong, trying desperately to tell people, and feeling like nobody believes you. The footage shows Henry becoming weaker and weaker, his voice fading, his movements slowing, yet the situation continued moving in the wrong direction. At one point, officers informed him that he was being arrested for assault. What nobody there realized was that the young man they were arresting was already dying.
As the minutes passed, Henry's condition rapidly deteriorated. The internal bleeding was severe, his body was shutting down, and eventually he stopped responding. Only then did the situation begin to change. Officers started emergency medical efforts. CPR was initiated. The realization was beginning to set in. Something was horribly wrong, but the damage had already been done. Medical experts later concluded that Henry's injuries were catastrophic. The wound to his heart was fatal. The bleeding was extensive, and according to testimony presented during court proceedings, there was likely nothing officers could have done to save his life by that stage. Still, the body cam footage ignited a firestorm, because many viewers focused on something else, not whether Henry could have survived, but how he was treated in his final moments. The footage appeared to show a young man repeatedly asking for help, repeatedly stating he had been stabbed, repeatedly saying he couldn't breathe, yet being treated as the aggressor. Meanwhile, investigators uncovered the truth behind the stabbing. Vikram Digwa was ultimately convicted of murder. The court heard that he had used a large blade during the attack, a weapon significantly larger than the traditional religious blade he later referenced. The judge sentenced him to life in prison, with a minimum term of 21 years. For Henry's family, however, the sentence could never bring their son back. His father later spoke publicly about the body cam footage. His words were emotional, raw, and devastating. He said his son did not die with dignity. He described watching the footage and seeing Henry's desperate attempts to explain what had happened, a memory no parent should ever have to carry. Across the country, public reaction exploded. People watched the footage, shared it online, and debated every second. Questions were raised about police training, decision-making under pressure, and whether officers missed critical warning signs. The case quickly became national news. The controversy didn't end with the murder conviction. An official investigation into police actions remains ongoing. Authorities are reviewing body cam recordings, witness statements, and evidence from the criminal trial. The goal is to determine exactly what happened during those critical minutes and whether lessons need to be learned. Political leaders weighed in, public demonstrations took place, and the case became a symbol of broader concerns about policing, accountability, and public trust. For many people, the most haunting part isn't the knife attack itself. It's the sound of Henry's voice, weak, fading, repeating the same words over and over. "I've been stabbed. I can't breathe." Whether investigators ultimately conclude mistakes were made or not, one fact remains unchanged. An 18-year-old lost his life. A family lost a son. And body cam footage captured moments that will likely be remembered for years to come. As always, we'd like to hear your thoughts. After watching the footage and hearing the details of this case, what questions do you think still need answers? Leave your opinion in the comments below. If you found this documentary informative, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss future true crime investigations. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.